This is a show about stepping out of your comfort zone. It's about leaving the main quest line for a minute, see what you're made of. It's about learning who you are and the many different ways you can draw a dragon over the course of 1 week. We're setting off on a journey. We want you to join us.
That's right. It is time for Side Quests. We're going on an adventure, and we're taking you with us. I'm your host, Steven, joined this time by the one and only, the Mr. TV's Travis. Jacob is off hunting ancient pony squirrels in the eastern panhandle of Ohio. So he's not going to be with us tonight, but he did draw a lot, and he told us that he would bring back a legendary jackrabbit.
Excellent.
Yeah, good old
Good,
jackrabbit pelt. You need
All right.
that. No, jackalope.
Well, we got to make
That's what I was thinking. Jackalope.
That's what, because we got to make that jackalope lined fedora we were talking about pre-show.
Exactly. There's no better material to make a fedora out of than jackalope pelt.
Mm-hmm.
If there's
Absolutely.
Travis, if there's any creature that I want to be alive on the planet and exist, it's a flippin' jackalope. Like
it's that or the furry trout. Like one of those two is the thing that I want to actually exist.
Yeah. They have to. I just want them to be a real thing. Like razor snakes, I could do without those. What's that creature that if you see it, it just turns into a puddle of sadness? I can't remember what they call that. Lumberjacks had them.
I can't remember either.
Yeah. Anyway, I know there's. If you ever want to know about ancient creatures that no one's ever seen before, look up lumberjack cryptids, because lumberjacks came up with a number of things.
Well, I mean, you spend that much time in the woods, you're going to see some things.
They invented flapjacks and razor snakes. And maple syrup.
The ultimate nope rope.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Well, we're not here to talk about the weirdness that is stuff that doesn't exist. We're here to talk about things that do exist and the quests that we have been on, that we have taken you on. Travis, we've been through a few. Just to recap this season so far, we've gone a culinary world tour. We faced our deaths. And this week, we drew stuff.
We did.
Which I have to say was a delightful turn, considering that we were dealing with our own deaths the week before.
This was a much, I would say, I don't want to say more fulfilling, but it was a much less, morbid. I don't even know if I want to say morbid. This was a much better challenge.
Yeah, much better.
I had a ton of fun doing this. I am not what you would call artistic. I don't feel as though I am anyway. And what was nice about this was a nice, like, all right, I'm going to step out of the zone I'm normally in and do something I've been thinking about wanting to do for a while. And I just keep putting off and forgetting about. And I'm like, oh, I should start doodling. And then I don't do it, or I do for 2 minutes and give up. So to have this where it was like, all right, I got to come up with something every day. And I tried to make it whatever I was going to draw be the challenge every day. Not just that I was going to draw a thing, but like, what am I going to draw and how am I going to come up with that and what was going to inspire me for that day? And there were a couple days where it was 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and I was starting to doodle. And it ended up being, a very simple drawing, but I still had a lot of fun with it. So this was great. I had, and it was cool to see the drawings popping into the Discord and seeing what was getting drawn. The stuff you were doing was great. I loved Disco Stew or whatever his name
Afro
is.
Afro
Mo. I like him. He was great. Of course, oddly normal ones in there, nailing it every day. Amy was posting some great stuff. Kelly's average, what was it? It's average, like
the average
fantasy creature.
Yeah,
that was awesome. That was I laughed out loud at that one.
So did I.
That was great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was cool seeing a hashtag get used. I've never invented a hashtag before that actually got any traction. So like the whole week when I had it up in TweetDeck, I have a search for Two Dorks Draws. Stuff was popping up in there that wasn't just me or you. It was other people had contributed and wanted to be a part of it. And that was super fun to see. And like you, I'm no artist, But I've been doodling since I was a kid. I've always enjoyed doodling. My style hasn't changed any over the 30 years of of me drawing. But it's
Right.
evolved a little bit, and every now and then, like, I tried to take this challenge, and every day I would try to come up with some other thing. Like, one day that piece of toast was some kind of art I've never done before. And I'm really into anthropomorphic food. I just like making food into things. The coffee
Yeah, you had
cup
your
would
toast, you had your tacos.
Yeah, I had the tacos. It's just my jam. The taco time thing, I really just wanted to draw a cup from Taco Bell from like the mid '90s, where it had that like pink and green turquoise cup. Uh,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
yeah, these were deliberate decisions, and it's like comics and Afro Mo, like that was Afro Mo. I drew in middle school a lot on graph paper, because it was fun to
Nice.
draw on graph paper because I could get his high heels right.
Mhm.
And they be just perfect squares. Uh, but
Yes.
but yeah, that was this. It was kind of it was a fun challenge. It was fun watching. I want every single one of Amy's dragons as a sticker that I can put on a
Yes.
notebook.
I do as well. In fact, her her dragon, the one that was sleeping,
Yes.
um, with the tiny little wings, and that inspired the cat that I drew, the little kitten sleeping
Oh
because it's in the same
yeah.
pose.
Yeah. Let me bring up one of these
And
while you're talking about it.
what was fun about what I had fun with was I tried to vary up what I not only the inspiration for what I would draw, but also the style that I was going to try and draw in. So like I did a couple of them where I found a tutorial online and I followed the steps. And what I liked about that was like, it was looking at something and breaking it down into shapes. So I would do, a couple of circles and I would connect those and I would add a little piece on here and add this detail there. And then other times, I was just like completely my smooth hero, little hero man or hitman. That was just like completely. I'm just making something up, and I'm like, oh well, the hero's going to have kind of that tapered, upside down triangle for his shoulders going into his waist, and this and that, and then like the cat. I saw her little dragon and I was like, that is adorable. And it looked like a kitten sleeping. And so I just tried to kind of deconstruct and how would I draw this? And what I found was I was using my iPad to do all my drawing. Um,
What app were you using for
and
that? Procreate.
Procreate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Procreate is amazing, by the way. If nothing else, if you love to draw or are even considering it and you have an iPad, spend $10 and get Procreate. It's worth every penny of that. Um, but it was what I found out was I can do the sketching on the iPad, but I want to try sketching on paper and then just taking a photo of that and inking it on the iPad because I found the inking and coloring aspects on that much more fulfilling than the actual sketch part, although I had a good time drawing all of them.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm starting to figure out some shading stuff and do that. So yeah, it was tons of fun. But yeah, Amy's little dragons, I just want every one of those. I actually I took one and I inked it, and I should put that in the Discord. But I don't have my iPad; it's upstairs. But I played around with that earlier today after I'd finished my drawing.
Yeah, you totally
So
should. I'd like to call out Oddly Normal one too, because his stuff. I mean, he's actually a professional artist. He
mhm.
definitely knocked it out of the park with every one of these. But I enjoyed the cartoon theming. One in particular that I really liked was his He-Man, Calvin and Hobbes
Yes,
mashup. That was great. It was Cal.
yep.
It's Hobbes dressed. Who's Hobbes dressed as? What's that character's name?
He's Battle Cat.
Battle Cat. Okay, well that makes perfect sense. He says, Why do I get the weird helmet, weird hair color helmet and belt saddle?" And Calvin says, "Because I have the power." And he's in this loincloth deal, looking like He-Man. It was just
Yeah,
really
and
cool.
I talked to him about that one last night while we were recording the Highlander show because I was that was my favorite one he did all week too.
Yeah.
And I what I liked was he was taking like he went in a different direction where he was like, all right, give me some cartoons
Hmm.
and then I'll draw those. And so it was he had Mighty Max and Calvin and Hobbes and Snoopy and Pinky and the Brain. and that was really cool. I was like just making up as I went along. The Jack in the Box. I'm like, all right, I'll do this. This was a fun little step by step tutorial, and it was kind of. And then of course my brain being what it is, I'm off on all these tangents. So as I'm drawing this Jack in the Box, the face shape reminded me of a tiki mask, which started making me think about a witch doctor. And then I started singing the witch doctor song the whole day while I was drawing that. It was really just out there.
Oh, that's
But yeah,
fantastic.
this was really, really fun.
I loved your Jack in the Box. It looked like you put a lot of, you even had background shading. You're doing some different colors in the background there. That was cool.
I was trying to mess around with like different gradients as like backgrounds just to get instead of having all of them be white. And that one was
Hmm.
kind of fun. Again, Procreate, like
Yeah.
take and make a layer. I learned a lot about layering and stuff like that that I can take and try to expand on more. Like you can take a layer and then do a gradient where you just have a circle of color and you just like smooth it out and you
Yeah.
make a gradient. And then I did that for a couple of them. The one dragon that I drew that was kind of more of a sketch, I actually took that and I made that um, gradient background, but I put it on top and then I erased it around my dragon. So it
Yeah.
removed that. Like it was interesting to kind of play around with these different parts of how to draw these things. I was having a blast.
Once you
It's way too
get
much fun.
Yeah, once you get used to layers in drawing apps like with Photoshop or Procreate or whatever, that's where the power is. That's where every bit of
Hmm.
it is. Like one thing I loved about Photoshop is you could take a layer and select everything on that layer like outside your center drawing or whatever, and then go to
Hmm.
another layer where you've got stuff you don't want to be there and delete it. Like let's say you just colored in just colored sloppily all over something. Like let's say it's a square. You have a square
Yep.
on one layer, go to the next layer, color all over it, go back down to that layer, select it, go back up to the color layer, and delete everything outside of that selection. And all of a sudden, you've got everything just contained in that one square. It's like all these little tools that you can utilize to make it easier to draw. Um, and little tricks. It's one of the things I learned from back in the day. There was a guy on Tech TV who would go on the screensavers all the time named Burt Monroy, and he's like a Photoshop master, and he
Hmm.
would do these really cool tutorials about like how do you make a look like a piece of metal has your name stamped in it, or how do you take a road sign that looks like it's been hit by a shotgun. And he had all these really cool tricks he would do, like we're just going to take this layer, we're going to do this, we're going to add this bevel and emboss, or we're going to change this, and it all looked fake, like it didn't look like
Hmm.
it was super detailed. This was also the early 2000s.
Right.
But at the same time, it wasn't necessarily about it being perfect. It was about teaching you little tutorial stuff that you could use to go further. Because he would always end his time talking about it and just say, "Go out and play." He's like, "Just play with these tools.
Yeah.
Play with the pen tool. Play with the this a different effect. Play with the layers." And it really like you start thinking when you start thinking in layers after you do it for a while, you start learning all these little tricks of how to quickly clean up where you've colored in something, or how to shrink something, or how to add two layers together and merge them, and like drop shadow, how to make that easy to do. There's all kinds of little
Yeah.
tricks in digital art that I suck at in with my hands on regular paper. I can't do it. It's funny. Like I even do some things on the Procreate that I would do on paper. I've always grown up seeing those learn how to draw books, and you have
Hmm.
you draw this circle, and then you draw the curved lines to show it's like a sphere.
Yeah.
I'm bad at that anyway. But I'm out of practice. I know I could be better, but I don't practice.
Hmm.
But you always see it done with blue lines. Like it's always done
Yeah.
with light blue, and then they go back over it in ink. That's actually because the blue doesn't scan in. I learned this watching a comic book artist talking about how those blue lines when they do in their initial sketches, when you scan them,
Yeah.
they don't come in. So they do that for the sketch, and then they just go back over it with a dark pencil or pen to draw the finer stuff, and that's what the scanner picks up. And I
Yeah.
thought that was
Yeah.
super cool. And I just sketch in blue now because I always watched people sketch in blue, but I never knew why. I just thought it was a nice contrast, and you'd be able to see better kind of what you're doing. Um,
And I think some of it is that too. Like it
sure.
probably got started with that. Yeah, I even found, like, a fun thing, the little robot that I did because I had one of the days I rolled on the prompt, table, and I got haunted toy,
Yeah.
and I drew the robot, but what was fun about that was I had been drawing the head of the robot, and I was trying to draw, square head, kinda your classic real boxy robot, and I was struggling because I couldn't get my little antenna to be the same on either side as I was drawing them, and then I thought about it for a second, like, "Wait a minute, I can just mirror this."
Yeah.
And so I took my image, I mirrored it, and then erased around and created the head of the thing, and I was like, "Oh, this is brilliant. Why haven't I ever thought of this before?"
Oh
Like, I was
yeah.
having these little epiphany moments like that, and the layering for color. Like, one thing, was really fun with one of the dragons is he had, a couple of teeth that were sticking out, like, one up and one down, and so you got white teeth on this green background is what I chose for his skin color. So I would color in the green as a layer, and then I would do a separate layer for the teeth, and I would just, like, lazily color over the whole white, but then I'd take that layer and I'd drop it below the green, and all of a sudden, clean.
Yep.
And then I just merge the 2 layers, and there you go.
Yeah.
Like, little tricks like that where I can go through and I can do a base area and then come back through, fill in all the details, drop, a couple of clicks later, and it looks great again. Like, this is all fun little stuff. I'm gonna keep drawing. I'm gonna keep doing this because I had a ton of fun with it.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to get back into it. I had a lot of fun with Procreate a long time ago. Jacob and I both did. Jacob drew some stuff we ended up making into stickers. We thought they were so cool.
Nice.
Because he's really good, and I'm gonna find a way to get him to recap his story and throw it in the feed because he's really good at art. He's one of those annoying people that's smart and can do science and can also draw. And you're like, he's free-handed pumpkins before, and I'm just upset. I'm upset at your skill. So no, if you're thinking I did not kill him and bury him in the backyard to keep him from talking about his drawings, he's really in the eastern panhandle of Ohio, if it has a panhandle, and he's hunting jackalopes. But yeah,
Yes.
like this, it's it was a good time. I'm glad that we got into it, and I want to do it more because I learned a lot. I tried some different styles to try and stretch a little bit. I tried to draw stuff like the Afro Mo that I hadn't drawn in a long time just to see how it changed. Afro Mo used to not have a mustache. Now he does. There's just
Well,
things
there you
that
go.
you do. But no, I'd loved everybody else participating. And
I did too.
watching Oddly draw and Amy draw, and I didn't know Amy could draw. I learned Amy can draw really well. Um, and I do want that James Brown coffee mug that I drew. I want it to exist.
That was cool.
Um,
That was cool. And I have to say, when you posted that at first, and you're like, "Look, I traced part of this image.
I
You
did.
inked that image. Okay,
No,
you
I
inked it.
appreciate it. Yeah, thank
That's
you.
that's how that works."
Yeah, I
Um,
did. I inked it.
yeah, no, I loved seeing the stuff because like Audie's style, I like a lot. I've been a fan of his art since I've known him. So I love seeing his style. Amy's little dragons. What I liked about them was each one had its own little personality, and you could
Yes.
like they were all just a little bit different. You had the one that was real like annoyed with the butterfly for some reason, and there's the one that's coming out of the little coffee cup that just looks like an adorable little kitten. Yeah, I was really digging those. I yeah, I definitely am a neophyte when it comes to drawing, and I haven't found a style yet that's mine. And I
Hmm.
think that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to. Plus, it's also I do the mini paints, the mini paintings, and um, I'm seeing like the layer idea and some of this drawing stuff translating into how I think about painting these miniatures too.
That's
So
interesting.
like
Yeah,
I can use it in different ways because it's not exactly the same going from 2D to 3D, but it's that layered effect. It's thinking about things in terms of like as I'm coloring in a 2D image and how I think about that, now I can translate that to how I paint these miniatures where I sort of think about them from the inside out. I think about what's the furthest away from the eye that I have to paint, and then I build on top of that. So
that's
I'm gonna do the
interesting.
skin first, and then the shirt, and then the jacket after that, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, this was really cool. And I have been wanting to get some sort of an artistic outlet because I have a lot of really cool ideas and I never can translate them out the way that I want. Like they never show up. I was starting to see what was in my head showing up in these drawings,
Nice.
at least
Yeah.
partially, not completely, but partially. And I was getting there. And that was really, really fun for me. Also, I found out, and I didn't know this when I started using Procreate, that it saves a time lapse of your drawing. And so I found the first things I was going to post on TikTok, and I was taking my drawing time lapses, just throwing some music on them and throwing them up on TikTok.
Cool.
But I also liked watching those because I could see how my thought process was going as I was drawing something. And that was
Yeah.
really interesting to watch because, like, the robot was a fun one because I had no idea what I was doing when I started that. So you can see me going through like, well, maybe if I try it, no, that's not going to work. Maybe if I do, no, that's not going to work. Well, I could try making a 20-sided die, and I couldn't fit, like, my brain couldn't wrap itself around that in 3 dimensions
Yeah.
to flatten out and put in 2D. And so I scrapped that, and then you see me start to sketch this robot and how it morphed, and like this is really cool. And it was a nice kind of dive into my own psyche that then I can take, and number one, I can use like the joy that I got out of this, but then it gives me something to learn too.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and the more
yeah.
the more you do it, the better. Like one thing I've always heard is practice, 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 and you'll get better. And but it's so slow. Like you really gotta love it. I don't love it enough. Like I like to draw, but I don't love it. Like the minute I remember, like we had project in high school, and I had to make a children's book, and I was gonna draw like this really cool children's book, and I decided to draw a cat in the city. And as you go through this book, you can see me getting tired of drawing buildings. Like you can just actively see me getting lazier as I go through it, and I do not have the passion or drive to like draw backgrounds. I look at pictures of Spider-Man, it gives me anxiety because I'm like, if I had to draw all the lines on Spider-Man's suit for 50 panels, I would kill myself. Like I no, just no, never, ever again. But there's people who love it. That's what they do. Like an oddly normal one, that's what he does. That's what Eric Webb does. Chris Marino, that's what he does. And it's like the details are not for me. I could never do this for real. But like you said, you've got ideas. You know exactly what you want in your head. There's been album art
Hmm.
I've known I've wanted to draw. There's been logos I've known I've wanted. Putting into words, really difficult. But what I've
Yeah.
done in the past, I've actually drawn like rough sketches and been like, here, artist person, like, I know this is what I want. I just can't make it look good. Can you, like, and the one thing you want to do, I never want to feed an artist exactly what I want. Like, it's kind of like walking into a
Hmm.
tattoo shop and asking them to tattoo a Thundercats logo. Like, okay, you know, like I feel like it's
Right.
robbing them a little bit of fun that they could have by saying, "Hey, draw this Thundercats logo that you probably could do in your sleep." So it's like I really just want to hand it to him and be like, "Take some liberties. This is a rough
Yeah.
sketch. This is mostly what I want, but please, good lord, take some liberties so you have some fun while you're at it."
That is actually every conversation I've had with a tattoo artist. I'm like, here's what I want to start with. Take that, play around with it, and then let's discuss it. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
how
yeah.
like my mirror started on my arm
Hmm.
was a very stylized version of this, and I gave it to her, and I was like, this is what I want to start with, and she did what she did, and it turned out better than I could have hoped for. So
Oh, sure,
yeah.
yeah. They're artists for a reason. Like you don't want to rob them of
Hmm.
their creative ability. Like sure, I could get a tattoo of Murray on my arm, from Monkey Island. That would be great, but that would be boring because it's literally just a few lines, and it would give
Yeah.
them it gives them something, you know. But I
Well,
think
what you do is you take Murray and you put him in a situation, right? You
sure,
add
yeah,
him into something else.
yeah,
Um,
get creative with it.
and one thing that I'm, because I know with other artistic endeavors, and I've talked to artistic people, whether they're musicians or drawing or sculpting or what, eh, and I've had this happen to me with some things where you have that kind of, there's that corner you turn, and suddenly you realize, oh, that's how this works. It's sort of, I had a friend of mine who was a guitar player, and in high school, he came to me one day out of the blue, and he's like, "Dude, I figured out how to solo." That
Yeah.
was the thing he couldn't do. He could play, but, like, soloing was never something that he could just do, and all of a sudden that he had that epiphany, and it just opened up for him. And I feel like with drawing, for me, what that will be is when I can take something and I can draw it in different poses and in different situations. I can take the kitten that I drew sleeping, and I can make that kitten into something that I can draw as just I'm drawing the kitten. It's sort of like Afro Mo, where you can
Yeah.
draw Afro Mo and that character, and that's like I think the next hurdle for me is to take not just putting lines on paper, but now understanding how this stuff moves.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that all
I'm
comes
looking
with
forward to
time.
stuff like that.
Yeah, and it comes with time. Like I watch people Brandon James Greer on YouTube is a pixel artist, and he does a lot of
Mhm.
really great tutorials of just working through his thought process of how he lays out a pixel scene. And the forethought that goes into drawing it, it's something else. Like it's next level. Like you look at it and you're like, pixel art is a bunch of tiny squares. It can't be that difficult. But the way they do it to make it so intricate, like for instance, to be in a top down looking scene where you're looking at an arcade and there's a bunch of arcade machines and you've got 256 pixels one way and 256 pixels the other way to show that entire message that this is an
Yep.
arcade, and we recognize it as an arcade. That's where the skill comes in. Like you've got 8 pixels by 4 pixels to make an arcade cabinet. Go. In limited color palette.
Right.
You got 4 colors to work with. Make it happen. And these guys can do it. And you're looking at it, you're like, holy balls, that's an arcade machine. But if I was doing it, no
Yeah.
way. Not in a million years. It's wonderful. And having done this challenge, I think what I'm trying to get at is I've already known that drawing was an art and it was difficult and it could take time and concentration. Whenever I set out on something like this, where I sit down with an idea and I want to put it on paper and I cannot get it, that's when you really learn why you should never ask an artist for free work for exposure.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
you
No,
already know, but you need to know it in your bones why you don't do that. You know?
yeah. The thing about it is, and I think what the trap that a lot of people will fall into that do that, number one, it's just a dick move. But also, when you see somebody like, I'll watch Len Peralta or Scott Johnson or Bad Carrot Cricket, and or even seeing like a time lapse of, I think I seem to remember Audie putting up a time lapse of something that he drew. But either way, like when you watch somebody who has done something like that for that long, it looks easy.
Yeah.
And so you think, well, of course you could just whip out a quick piece, and I could use that, and that would be, you get the exposure of somebody seeing your artwork. But when you're paying an artist for the work, you're not just paying for that finished work. You're paying for all the time that they put into getting to that point where it is looking that easy to do, because it's not easy to do. It's a skill. It's a skill that has been honed over time to this razor's edge of where it becomes easy looking. It's sort of like a fan of a baseball team ripping on the guy that misses that goes 0 for 4 in a baseball
Mhm.
game. It's like that dude has forgotten more about how to play the game than you'll ever know. And he's in the top 2% or 1% of the people on the planet that do that thing. Just because he didn't do it the way you want him to that one time doesn't mean he's bad at it. He just had
Right.
a down moment, but he's still really, really good and really skilled. An artist that can, Scott whipping out a drawing while they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, doing There Will Be Dungeons, and he's involved and paying attention, but his skill has been so honed over time that he can do it. And then you look at the art and you're like, holy crap, that's amazing. He did, I don't know if you saw his little Wastelander baseball player that
I
he
don't
did.
recall it. Yeah.
He threw the sketch up and then he ended up inking it and coloring it. But I'm looking at that and I'm like, this is fantastic. And not only does the art look cool, but you can see where the skill is, because he's got like the anatomy of the baseball player is accurate.
Yeah.
The way his feet and his legs and where his hands are positioned, it's right.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, it just looks cool. Like, I don't know, you can gain a whole new appreciation if you try to do something that you watch other people do and make look easy.
Yeah.
You gain a greater appreciation for it.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah, I'm with you on that.
yeah, I hung drywall this weekend, and I now appreciate all people who do anything with drywall more than I ever did before. And I only had to do like 7 inches of drywall. I had to do like nothing. It was stupid. It was just the bottom part of my bathroom. I just had to do the drywall. This is awful. But yeah, you're right, and there's something to be said about knowing the human anatomy and stuff like that, because you can make cartoony stuff, but there's a point where we don't believe it. So like
Mhm.
you were saying, Scott is a cartoonist. His stuff is not meant to be photorealistic, but his arms are right and his legs are
Yeah.
right and his face is right. Where the things are matters. And I think I learned that
Yep.
anytime I'm trying to draw and I'm like, this doesn't look right because the point from his shoulder to his elbow is significantly longer than from his elbow to his hand. And it's
Yeah.
like and it's that stuff that makes your brain just go, that's not a human or that's something weird, and you don't accept it, even if it's as cartoony as you want to make it. There are aspects of anatomy that our brain is okay with, and we have to
Yeah,
get
well,
there.
I mean, you look at Audie's sketch or his drawing of Calvin and Hobbes, and then think about Calvin as an anatomical person. Like he doesn't make sense as a 6-year-old for his size, except that everything is proportioned properly for the stature that he has.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. It's very cartoonish. His head is ridiculously huge compared to the rest of his body. He's got these tiny little legs and short little arms, but it works because he actually looks like just a shrunken down human with a big
Yeah,
head. So
yeah, it's all
you can
proportioned.
yeah, you mess with the proportions a little bit and you're fine. Hobbes is the same way. You're right. There is that point where uh you just don't believe it anymore. I mean, look at even older cartoons like Popeye. You know, the character of Popeye is ridiculous looking, Bluto is ridiculous looking, but they still look close enough to human because the anatomy is correct.
Right,
So
exactly.
because you're right, I'm the same way. I start drawing something, I'm like, no, hold on, wait a minute. That arm is longer than that arm, and where I have problems is perspective. That's my
Yes,
biggest thing.
yes,
I can draw a
amen.
side perspective just fine, but it's when I start trying to make it look like it's at an off angle and make it
Mm-hmm.
look more give more depth to something is when my brain starts to short circuit, and I have to start laying down those pathways
Yeah.
and learning that kind of stuff.
Turn ahead 30 degrees. I have no idea where
Mhm.
the eyeball's supposed to go. I don't know
Yeah, exactly.
where does the mouth begin and end. Hair. I can't even flip and do the top of somebody's head. Like to do like wavy hair or slick back hair, I don't know how to do it. Like I had Stephanie do it for me. I was on one of my pictures I was just playing with. I was like, draw hair on this head and show me how to make it look right. And I mean, she's an artist. And I looked at it, I'm like, I could not I still don't know how you did that. How did you make it look like hair? All the hair I draw it never looks like, I never know where to stop and start on the top of the head to get the perspective of like
Yeah.
looking at someone. Where does their head end? What do we do? There's so many little techniques that I'd like to hone, and I think one of the ways we can do that is YouTube tutorials, watching people draw, tracing. Neil Adams. If you're a comic book fan of any shape or size, you probably have heard the name Neil Adams. He was the inventor of the
Mhm.
John Stewart Green Lantern, and he did a big run on Green Lantern, Green Arrow back in the day. He's written Batman, but he also draws. And he said in an interview I heard him in, he was like, "Great artists trace." He said, "Get some tracing paper and trace." He said, "It will teach you techniques and how things are done that you can translate to your own freehand art." And he was like, "I will never slide anybody for tracing." He's like, "I've been doing this my whole career. I trace." And he does the same thing. He was talking about how when he writes, he reads for style. Like he reads comics for style. He doesn't read them to copy or plagiarize, but he reads for
Mhm.
flow and how things work. And it's the same thing when you're learning how to draw. Trace all the time, and you eventually pick up cues and technique that you didn't know you had. And I plan to do that more. Like Procreate makes it easy. You can import a picture from the web into your art and then make a new
Yep.
layer and just draw on top of it and just fiddle.
Yeah.
That's how I did the James Brown thing. Pulled in a big old picture of James Brown and grabbed the highlights that made him look like James Brown. his hair
Yep.
and his wrinkles and his eyes and his teeth. James Brown got a big old smile. And when you're doing
Yeah, he does.
caricatures, that's another thing you pay attention to is things. If I was drawing Travis, I'd draw Travis's beard and his hat.
Hmm.
Those
Those are the
things would
things
be
that draw your
key.
eye, and yeah,
Yeah, those would be key. Um,
yeah. The tracing one is a big one because you can take whether it's a photo or a drawing, and like I think about doing that and then deconstructing it and trying to break it down so that then I can rebuild it. So I
yeah,
can
yeah,
take the image, figure out where all the important bits of it are, and then structure that in my head so that then I can start from nothing and try to build it back up.
sure,
It's
yeah,
the whole, take a car apart so you can put it back together and learn how it all works. That's how my brain goes in that direction a lot. So that is something I'm going to definitely play around with and try.
yeah,
And it helps with learning the perspective too, because if you've got a drawing or you've got a photograph and you're tracing out the photograph, you can pinpoint, oh, here's where the shoulder joint is. And oh, looking at it from this perspective, I can see where the arm needs to go because of the way that how it's moving in there, like that kind of stuff. That's
yeah.
what I'm really, yeah. This was there was a lot more to this than just doodling something every day,
It's
and
fun. It's
that's what I
yeah.
liked about it.
It's fun that these challenges don't just. It's not just about depending on how you take it. It's not just about doing the thing. It's about thinking about the thing while you do it and
Hmm.
what you learn
Yeah,
from it. And I did not expect us to talk this long about drawing, but there's so much nuance that I think we all discovered from doing it. And I'm glad that we did, but I'm also glad that other people did because we indeed got an email.
we
Travis,
did.
yes.
We did. We got an email from Amy, and Amy says, "Yes, I am artsy. Yes, I have an art degree. Yes, I have a number of artistic talents, but I do not draw. Drawing is a skill, and I could definitely improve it if I worked at it. But I'm already such a hobby magpie, flitting from one thing to the next. I've never wanted to invest that much time in it. This quest kind of stressed me out. Maybe because I have an art background, so it feels rather like expectations are higher. I've tried to do a bunch of monthly drawing challenges in the past and have never really gotten very far. I think this being just a week probably helped me stick with it a lot easier. Thanks for the challenge. I had a good time, even if I'm kind of glad it's over."
I can see that. I can definitely feel that. You got additional pressure having all these what should be artistic credit, and then
Right.
sitting down to draw. And it's so funny, no matter how skilled you are, because I think if you look at Amy's art up against my art, there's a clear distinction. Somebody's better. Somebody knows what they're doing, and somebody's just doodling, right? So and
Mhm.
but to her, in reading this email, it seems like that's the same perspective she has on her own art compared to other people, which
Sure.
I think is
Sure.
fascinating. No matter how good you get, you can't help but look at it and go, this I see all my mistakes. I see my thought process. I see the patterns I took, the shortcuts, and no one else does. I try to tell my wife this all the time because she's an artist. She paints beautiful, beautiful pictures, and she's always like, I probably need to not bother showing this one to anybody. It's not that good. I'm like, it's a photorealistic falcon with a hat on. It's incredible. And she
Yeah.
just, I can't get
Yeah.
her to do it.
I
So I
mean,
feel it.
I've had this discussion with my sister a lot because my sister got the drawing gene. She got the
Mm.
bug. She was the kid drawing on napkins at every restaurant we ever went to, and like every flat surface, uh, paper wise, she had a drawing on it somewhere. And and that was the thing. We've had a lot of discussions about that, and she's always putting down her art and stuff. I'm like, Lindsay, your stuff is incredible, and she very rarely would have like she was one that never did the whole I'm going to sketch this out and then build around that. She just started with a pen and finished the thing, and that's what it was.
Hmm.
And she just had that drawing ability, and that was what. And then she branched off into painting. But we had this discussion a lot because she would get upset when something she did she didn't think it was good enough. I'm like, well, for one, you're using a different skill set now. You've moved from drawing to painting. It's not
Yeah.
the same thing. And that's a thing. Maybe you can be good at drawing, you can be good at sculpture, you can be good at, because sculpture is going to be very different, right? You're working in 3 dimensions, and
Oh
if you're
yeah.
wondering what something looks like, if you're trying to figure out what the perspective of the arm looks like, you can just take the sculpture and you can turn it
Right, yeah.
physically and do a thing with it. Um, and then I see people that do like these collage art
Mhm.
or mosaic art, like that boggles my mind
Oh
when I
gosh.
see stuff like that. Or like the street artists that'll have a canvas and they start painting on the thing and it looks like they're just throwing paint on it. And then all of a sudden they pick up the canvas, flip it 180 degrees, and you've got a picture of Jim Brown from 1968 running with a football. It's like, what? Wait a minute. No, no. Where did that come from? Like,
Yeah.
how did throwing paint at a canvas become Abraham Lincoln? I don't get it, but it works. Like,
But
that's
that's
just.
that's you're looking at it from your skill set going impossible. They have honed this craft.
Hmm.
That's the thing we,
Oh
we
yeah.
miss. We only see people once they've got it figured out enough to show the world. They've been
Right.
sitting there futzing around with it for who knows how long. And I think that's one
Hmm.
thing that like even in what we do, even in the podcasting realm, you have people come up to you and be like, "Wow, your voice is really radio. Like you really do a good job hosting this thing or that thing." And it's like I've been flexing this muscle for 10 years. Like this is no
Yeah.
this is I wasn't born this way. Like this took time and effort and like anything else you do, not always deliberate. You just do it
Hmm.
and you just gradually improve. If you set any of your mind on a practice mindset, it's like people who play Fortnite and are really good at it. Like one time Ninja, big old Fortnite player, was like, I don't just play Fortnite. He said I practice Fortnite. And he was like, what I
Hmm.
mean by that is I pay attention to my mistakes. I pay attention to my strategies. I pay attention to where things went wrong, and I try to remember that so I cannot do that next time. Or you and I are
Yeah.
just mindlessly flip and play Fortnite, just like
Right.
trying to chill
Exactly.
at night. It's a different in doing the art and sculpting or whatever it is, or watching these people like you said throw paint into canvas. They're strategically placing that paint that they're
Hmm.
throwing, and
Yeah.
you
Oh
ending up
yeah.
with a
No,
picture.
it's
Yeah,
it's it's 100% a skill. And the thing
yeah,
about it is, you're right. That is a great way to think about it. Is we're not seeing somebody figure out how to do it. We're seeing them. Oh, I know. I have now gotten to this point. It's sort of like if I went back and listened to stuff that I recorded years ago, I'm going to hear all the differences in how I've grown
yeah,
as a podcaster, as a public speaker, as somebody who can just sit and ramble on for an hour about nothing, and help to carry a conversation. That is not something that is just innate. That is a skill. You're right. It is a muscle that you're flexing over time, and it takes time to get there. And art is no different than that. They're all. That's why I have really tried very hard over the last couple of years to stop saying somebody has a lot of talent, because
hmm
I feel like saying that is doing them a disservice. Like they didn't have to work at it.
yeah. To all their work.
And
That's a good point.
yeah, and as I've gotten older and as I have had more experience with people, I realize it's a skill. These are all things that have been practiced and worked on to get to the point where you're that good at it. So I always try to tell people that they have a lot of skill in what they do.
Yeah, that's a really good practice. I think there's obviously people that have a gift towards something and an ability that may be ingrained just how their brain works is more suited towards something that they've gravitated to. But yeah, like the getting it
Hmm.
right and getting it done well is honed. I think that's a really good. I'm gonna try to remember that as I move forward. Is
Yeah,
trying
I
to use the word
mean,
skill.
I had when I was growing up, I got into distance running. I got into cross country and track. And I had talent does exist
Hmm
because I had a talent for running. I was good at it. But that talent can only take you so far. You still have to hone the skill.
Yeah.
And the talent might get you started or might push you in that direction. You might have a talent for drawing and enjoy that drawing, but it's still you're going to work at it to get to the point where you are oddly normal one, or you are Scott Johnson, doing that for that long. It's more than just talent. And that's why I always try to praise somebody for their skill and for the amount of time and effort and work that they've put into something,
Yeah.
because I know just from the silly things that I have done, how much time it takes and the skill that you need to hone. So
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
that's been a big one for me.
Well, we thank everybody for submitting all your art and being a part of this fantastic discussion about this quest this week. If you shared your stuff in Discord or Twitter or Instagram, you drew for 7 days a week, punch your virtual punch card as you get closer to that award-winning award that that award you'll get at the end of the season for completing all the tasks with us. If you want to leave us a voicemail, what number can they leave that voicemail at, Travis?
Is 231-486-5401.
That's right. Keep that at 60 seconds or less, but fill us in on how your quest went. Some of these quests are more suited for that than just what you did. This one was really good for just digitally sharing on Twitter and stuff.
Hmm.
But you can also send it to dearsidequest@gmail.com. Just send us a couple paragraphs about how your quest went. If you're not done doing your drawing, don't worry. Take some cushion time. Get it all done.
Yeah.
Join us on Discord. Chat about your experience over there at twodorks.net/Discord. And if you have any just general thoughts to share about any quests, hashtag LOD SideQuest. We'll get it noticed on Twitter or Instagram or
Yeah.
wherever. We'll keep an eye on that hashtag for you to report back anything that you have to share with us. But it's time to reveal next week's challenge or this week's challenge. As we move into this week, I'm going to go ahead and do a one final refresh over there at twodorks.net/poll. Boom. Quest number 4 is screenless hour. Don't use your screens 1 hour before bedtime. Holy poop.
Oh boy.
Holy butts. All right. So the rules for this one: do your best, do your very best to
Hmm.
not look at a screen 1 hour prior to laying your head down to go to sleep or while you're laying in bed. Don't look at the screen then either. The whole idea, I think, we wanted to come up with this challenge because, for one thing, I think it's good for you. We've heard numerous times that looking at screens before bed disrupts your sleep and causes problems. So we wanted to take it for a test drive. Go ahead and
Sure.
not look at a screen. Take your eyes off of everything around you. Grab a book. Did we decide if Kindle, like e-readers that didn't have backlights, were fair game,
I
or do we
would
want paper
say,
books?
I mean, an e-reader, if it's the dedicated e-reading device, I would say that's fine because it's
Yeah.
not really, it's in the spirit of the rule. You're not
Yeah.
looking at an LCD screen, you're not watching a video, and you're not getting saturated by the blue light.
Right.
Um, so they're, yeah, like, or
Like
Amy's
Danny
perfect.
Orris
They're
is. Yeah.
e-paper, but
Yeah.
not the tablet one, not like a Kindle Fire.
Yeah.
But if you have the Kindle Paperwhite or the Kindle e-reader, that's fine because that's e-paper. That's a different animal altogether. So I would say that's good. Paper
Yeah.
books. Um, this is going to be a challenging one
Mm-hmm.
for me. However, given that I was up until almost 2 o'clock in the morning last night, um, partially because I couldn't sleep and partially because I was on my phone, uh, which
Wonder
sort
why
of
you
fed
couldn't sleep.
itself. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep because I was on my phone, but I was on my phone because I couldn't sleep,
Yeah.
and so uh, this is going to be a challenge for sure. But I'm interested in how this is going to go over the next week.
Yeah. Yeah, same. So we got a couple questions in the chat. So Amy's basically told us as the non-podcasting fourth member of SideQuest so far, Amy has voting rights. So yeah, e-paper books like a Kindle and stuff, that's fine. Just not like a Kindle Fire or whatever that's actually a screen with multiple purposes. DH Dunn wants to know, what if I listen to a podcast without looking at it? I think that's probably fair. I mean, we said no screens. I feel like if you want to listen to it, tape, a book on tape, as they say,
Oh,
or
sure. No, that's
it
not using a
feels,
screen.
yeah, it
You're
feels fair to me. It's not. We're
Mhm.
not saying meditate for an hour before bed. We're just saying find if you. I mean, just find if you want to sit and do a puzzle for an hour. That's not looking at a screen. That's doing a puzzle.
Sure.
The whole
Like I
idea
said,
being
read the
just
book. If you
yeah.
have a sketchbook and drawing on paper
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is, basically it's don't be sitting in front of the TV or your computer screen or your iPad or your phone and just staring at it. Try
Yeah.
not to use that for the hour before you go to bed.
Yeah. So Travis, what are
Try to
your
do
what are
something
your
different.
concerns? What are you looking at going into this? Where's your brain go?
I mean, my biggest concern is that I have people that I converse with only through like instant messaging, text message, Facebook Messenger type thing, where it's my only real avenue to talk to them, and that's going to be trickier. Um, as far as like just not using the iPad to watch YouTube or scroll TikTok or play a video game or something, like not have the Switch in front of me for the last 10 minutes before I go to bed playing Zelda. That won't be that hard. I've done that before. I can think of it. I mean, I can do that part of it. It's the communication aspect with a certain couple of people um, that's going to be tricky. I got to
Yeah.
figure that one out.
Yeah. Uh, for me, it's a lot. I've got the FOMO problem. Like I've always
Hmm.
had FOMO. I want if it's happening, I want to know about it, and I want to know about it first. It's done me well in some aspects, and it's done me not so well in others. So like there's things I'm gonna hear about or see. Like one thing that's got me real stressed out is the idea that I can't like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to watch Loki. I've got a kid, right? And he doesn't go to bed till 8:30 on a good night. Um I mean,
Right.
I have to plan on if I'm gonna watch something, I'm gonna have to stay up a lot later to cut off that hour before bed. Like my bedtime is gonna have to shift. So, and that's one of the ways me and my wife spend some time together. We watch a show before we go to bed sometimes. So I'm a little
Yeah.
nervous about all that. But I'm also excited. So I'm also gonna miss out on playing Mass Effect on the nights I'm not podcasting because I've really been enjoying the game. Now I gotta put it down for a week unless I play it during the day,
Well, you just
which
gotta
is
you just gotta put it
awful.
down. You can't play it. You have to play less.
Yeah,
You can
I
play
play
it,
like
but you
what
can only play
20
it for like
minutes and then
right.
shut it down. So I've got a little bit of anxiety about that, but I'll get through it. And this is all just part of that FOMO. Like I'm gonna put my phone down. Oh no, what if what if it buzzes and it needs me? Well, too bad,
Right.
so sad. I am on call this week, so if it buzzes a lot, I've got to look at it. But generally, it's quiet, so it should be okay. I should be able to pull it off. I'm already getting the shakes thinking about not being able to do it, but this is why we do it. I think this is why the
DH
challenge is important.
Yeah, and DH Dunn brings up a good point, which is the hardest part for me will be knowing when an hour before bed
Yeah,
starts because I don't have a consistent bedtime.
it's a good
That
point.
can be too, but maybe, you know, that's the challenge for you this week is to try and set yourself a consistent bedtime if you can. Like try
Nothing
to
Yeah,
yeah,
nothing's more healthy than a consistent bedtime. In all honesty, like a
it's
consistent go
true.
to bed and wake up time. Head gamer in our Discord, tutorworks.net/Discord will preach it all day. Sleep health, along with mindfulness. And one of the things I'm thinking about doing an hour before bed is spend 10 minutes trying to do the mindful meditation thing. Um, it's the one practice that they can actually record improve cognitive improvement in people if they practice it daily. It's one of those things. They're like, you could play Brain Quest on your DS for a year, and if you stop doing it, you go right back to just, whatever. But mindfulness will help. I was reading something today, and it said that people taking one of the standardized tests who practice mindful meditation for like 2 weeks before the test every day consistently did 16% better on the test than when they were not doing it. Um,
Hmm.
and I thought it was fascinating. Like that's pretty 16% is like I mean that's double digit percent improvement. And it basically just teaches you how to wrangle your mind and focus better. Um, so
Yep.
yeah, I'm excited. I'm nervous. Uh,
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to really intentionally go to bed. I think that's the only way to get past this is pick a time. Like if I want to go to sleep at 10:30, I need to stop doing stuff by 9:30. I think I might can pull it off if I use that time period.
Yeah, and again, it's not like you have to not use anything that uses electricity. It's just not a screen. Put some
Yeah.
music on,
Yeah.
like you said, do a puzzle, grab a book, write, put something
Mhm.
down in a journal,
Yeah.
doodle, whatever it is. It's just let's harken back. Some of us are old enough to remember before we had pocket computers.
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
this wouldn't have been that difficult. So, you know, that kind of stuff.
I have
And
enough
for me, it's like
analog
it's
hobbies that I can probably come up with stuff.
yeah. I feel like I do too. Like I say, the hardest part for me is the communication one, and I'll just have to. I'm going to have to try and figure out some alternative methods.
Hmm. Well, I'm excited for it. We'll be sure to fill Jacob in. I'm sure he already knows because Smashy's in the
Hmm.
chat, so he knows what he's
Right.
got to do. Obviously tonight, tomorrow. I can't. The podcast nights. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might just do an extra day or two of the days I'm not podcasting because usually I'm like turn this off and I go to sleep. I'll just
Hmm.
do like a couple extra days to finish up and make sure I get like a full week's worth of this test in.
Yeah, and I mean you have tomorrow night for H&H, but do you have
Then I'm
anything else
clear.
throughout the rest of the week?
No,
Yeah,
I'll
so
be clear. So
you'll be all right.
I'll just add an extra day after next week's H and relax. But I'm looking forward to it. But so that's that one, and that means we've got a new poll. And I'm gonna remember to talk about what it is this time, and not hang up the phone and
Yes.
be like, "What was that?" So we're now moving officially into our second tier. This is our second tier of the tournament. So things that we've seen before are now going to show up again, but against each other and against a different competition. So moving
Yeah.
forward into the second tier of the tournament, we have two quests up against each other. Clean Up a Parker Road has made its triumphant return. You can vote for that,
Hmm.
or you can vote for the Get Driven 2 miles away blindfolded and find your way back. Which
Yes.
is both. I have a feeling I know which one is gonna get picked this time, but these are both a lot tougher. It's kind of cool. I didn't really expect this when we started this show until we started doing. I'm like, we're just gonna keep moving forward. The ones no one wants to do, or the ones like they
Yeah.
least want to do, until we finally get to what
Yep.
we consider either the hardest or the most or the least enjoyable
Hmm.
challenges. So this is gonna be a fun one to watch people vote for.
It is. I know which of the two I am more interested in doing,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm curious to see kind of what the community at large decides that they want to do.
Yeah,
Because I know when you're kicking them, when you're kicking the can down the road, it's the I don't want to do this thing right now.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm very curious to see how this all shakes out.
I will tell you
I just won't be able to check the poll for an hour before I go to bed.
right, yeah, we won't be able to look at it. I'll tell you one thing. I was encouraged, not encouraged. I guess I should say discouraged. I went to a park recently, and now that summer is ongoing, we're now in summertime. People are out and
Mhm.
about. There is no shortage of trash to pick up. Uh, you will find
This is
it.
true.
You walk
Oh yeah.
outside long enough, you will find plenty of stuff. And in places you think should be clean because you're just like, what is wrong with people? I've
Mm,
actually seen a few posts on Reddit recently of just people taking pictures of themselves with big garbage bags. They're like, went out and cleaned up some stuff today. Just me and a buddy randomly decided to take care of this highway. And it's like it's available. There's trash everywhere. It's gross.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so if you're worried
Yeah.
about, I
Sadly,
don't know where I'm
humans
gonna
are
go.
gross.
Yeah, just go anywhere. Like, just find anywhere. I promise you, there's trash there. People are resurfacing, and they're terrible. So that'll be fun. And then the 2 miles away thing again. That one's doesn't have to be 2 miles from home. Just pick a spot somewhere you want to return to, and
Yep.
have somebody drive you somewhere else and drive back. Please keep in mind safe neighborhoods. I don't want to hear somebody got mugged because they were participating in side quests. Like, don't torture your
Yeah.
friends.
No, don't do that. No, no, no,
Carry a large knife. Just be safe.
no.
Jeez.
Please,
Uh,
please be safe.
but that's it for the show this week, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating so far in all these.
Hmm.
Watching you guys with us has been super fun. I'm real excited to hear how this challenge goes for you. I'm nervous. I'm excited. We're just gonna we're gonna come out of this better people. That's what I believe. I have to believe.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and I'm interested to see how many of us decide I might keep this up, which would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So yeah. So if you've been enjoying this show, please rate us on whatever podcast service you listen to us on. If you can give us 5 stars or just a review of any kind, we would greatly appreciate it. Of course, you can join us on our quest like always. And if you want to vote for next week's poll, I'm going to go ahead and drop the poll in the chat. But if you're listening to this in podcast form, you can go to twodorks.net/poll, and it will be updated so that you can vote for yourself and make it happen. And with that, we'll see you guys next
Excellent.
time here on Side Quests. Bye.
Bye.
All right. I didn't know if you were going to hit I'm going on an adventure or not, so I'll let it roll for
Oh,
a
I
second.
wasn't even thinking about it. I picked up because I made something for my dad for Father's Day that I still have to finish off and paint for him. But I've been having fun with my resin printer, so I printed this guy out.
Oh, snap. That looks awesome.
Yeah, this was a really cool sculpt that I found, and so my dad being a Spider-Man fan, I'm like, I'm gonna
Oh,
print that out and I'm gonna paint it up for him.
I have got to
So
get me one of those.
on top of all the other stuff, I saw him tonight because they decided to go camping this week since my parents are both retired now.